All right, for our final explainer on Bertrand Russell's The Conquest of Happiness, we're diving into his most powerful, most practical advice for finding a little peace in our very busy modern world. It really boils down to a simple shift in focus, but one that can make all the difference.
But let's start with the question. Why are our minds so noisy? Even when life is objectively good, when all our basic needs are met, it's so easy to feel trapped in this cycle of worry and overthinking. Russell actually had a name for this. He called it nervous fatigue, and he noticed that we modern people tend to suffer from it, even when there's no real obvious reason why.
So what's at the root of all this mental chatter? Well, for Russell, the diagnosis is surprisingly simple. We are just too preoccupied with ourselves. Our minds get turned inward, stuck on our own thoughts, our own ego, our own problems, day in and day out. So in this explainer, we're going to break down Russell's brilliant idea for finding peace by learning to turn our attention outward. We'll see exactly how it works, and I'll share one really simple practice you can try today to put it all into action.
The real pivot point in Russell's whole philosophy is what he calls the outward turn. He argues that the antidote to being so wrapped up in ourselves isn't to fight our thoughts or try to wrestle our worries into submission. Nope, it's much simpler. We just shift our focus.
And the way we do that is through what he called impersonal interests. Now, I know it sounds a little academic, but the idea is incredibly simple. It just means developing a genuine, friendly curiosity about things outside of your immediate personal world. This isn't about mere distraction. It's about a deliberate, almost joyful engagement with everything around you. And you can really see the difference here. That inward gaze, it locks us in a loop of worry and ego, and that leads directly to that nervous fatigue he talked about. But the outward turn, which is fueled by curiosity, creates a sense of connection and ultimately calm. For Russell, the antidote to self-absorption is that simple. It's curiosity.
And this idea, it really builds on itself. Because developing these external interests does way more than just distract us. It actually changes our fundamental relationship with the world and our tiny little place in it.
This is just a brilliant way to put it. Russell uses this powerful metaphor of a billiard ball, this hard, separate thing that just kind of clacks around, colliding with other things. That's the self-absorbed person. But when we start cultivating outside interests, we begin to feel less like a billiard ball and more like part of a flowing stream connected to something so much bigger.
So here's the crucial takeaway. When you develop a real interest in something vast, like Russell suggests the history of the stars, or maybe another culture, or even just the life cycle of the plants in your garden, you gain perspective. You're gently reminded that your personal worries are not, in fact, the entire universe.
And here's the best part. This isn't about escaping your problems forever. Russell says that after you take one of these little excursions into the impersonal world, you return to your life. But you come back with this newfound poise and calm, which actually makes you better at dealing with your worries in a healthy, effective way.
Okay, so we get the why, but how do we actually do this? How do we make this philosophy a real concrete part of our daily lives?
Well, Russell points to 3 key areas where we can practice this outward focus. And the good news is, they're not some grand academic pursuits. They're woven right into the fabric of everyday life, through meaningful work, through our relationships with others, and even in our simplest habits and hobbies. The whole goal is to find joy in these small daily activities.
Let's just take work, for example. Russell noticed that people who are engaged in simple, constructive work, think scientists, skilled craftspeople, artists, they can experience this really profound happiness. The key is focusing on the craft itself, on the task at hand, for its own sake. It's such a powerful way to get out of our own heads and lose ourselves in a constructive purpose, even if that work isn't our ultimate life passion.
So let's distill all of this down into one simple, actionable practice you can use immediately. Let's call it a happy life reset. It's just a way to consciously shift from that inner noise to an outer interest, even if it's just for a moment.
It's super simple. First, just gently notice when your mind is caught in that inward-looking loop of worry. No judgment, just notice it. Second, deliberately pick one small thing in the world around you. A cloud, a crack in the pavement, the sound of a distant train. And third, engage with it. Observe it with a friendly, gentle curiosity. What does it look like? What color is it? What's one interesting thing about it? That's it. That's the shift. As we wrap up not just this explainer, but our entire series on Russell's wisdom, the core message becomes incredibly clear. The conquest of happiness isn't really about changing your circumstances. It's about changing your focus.
So let's recap those crucial points one last time. First, your focus determines your sense of peace. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Second, that genuine, friendly curiosity is the most powerful antidote to the fatigue that comes from being stuck in your own head. And finally, happiness isn't something that just happens to you. The conquest is a deliberate, joyful engagement with the world.
Ultimately, Russell's advice is an invitation to do just this, to feel ourselves as part of the vast and wonderful stream of life. And with that, we're concluding our series on the conquest of happiness. If you'd like to revisit any of the ideas we've covered, you can find the full playlist right here on our channel.
So I'll leave you with a final question. It's not about what you need to fix inside yourself, but what's waiting to be discovered outside. What small piece of the world will you explore with some friendly curiosity today?